right, this video lesson, I am going to explain the discriminant, which is part of the quadratic formula. So the discriminant, the purpose is that it's going to discriminate between whether your answers are imaginary, rational, or real. So that's why we call it the discriminant. And what it is b squared minus 4ac. So hopefully you recognize this as being part of the quadratic formula. But I want you to notice that it is not including the square root or any of the rest of the quadratic formula. So when we talk about the discriminant, we are talking about just this part, which is the b squared minus 4ac. So it's important to remember that we're not taking the square root of it. We're only using this part of quadratic formula when we do the discriminant. Now, keep in mind that we get the a, the b, and the c from our original problem. So you need to make sure that you get this set equal to 0 before you determine the values for your a, b, and c. Okay, so what happens is you're going to take these three numbers, the a, the b, and the c, and you're going to fill them in, and you're going to work them out. And there's three different things that can happen when you get your answer, okay? You might work this out and get a positive answer. You could work this out and get a negative answer, or you can work this out and get 0. So there's three different things that can happen, and that's how we determine what kind of answers we will have. So I'm going to make, I think I'm going to make a chart. So first off, I'm going to say that b squared minus 4ac could equal 0. Okay? All right? Or b squared minus 4ac could be a negative number, or b squared minus 4ac could be a positive number. All right, so those are the three things that can happen. So let's start off with the first one. So let's say you fill in b squared minus 4ac and you get that it equals 0. So what that means is that when you go to do the quadratic formula, you're going to have plus or minus the square root of 0. So you would end up with, for example, I'm going to move this down here a little bit. You would have negative b plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2a. All right, now, if that happens, we know that the square root of 0 is 0, so you're going to have negative b plus 0 and negative b minus 0. So what that means is that you're going to get two of the same answers. All right? So what really happens is you're getting one rational solution. So if b squared minus 4ac equals 0, then you're going to get one rational solution. So that's the first thing that can happen when you do the discriminant. All right. Let's say that you fill in b squared minus 4ac and you get a negative answer. Okay? So what that means is that you would get negative b plus or minus the square root of a negative number all over 2a. Okay, so keep in mind that this is what we're talking about right here. That's the discriminant. So here it was 0. Here it's a negative number. Now, if you think about it, you haven't had any experience with this yet, but we can't take the square root of a negative number because taking the square root means that we are saying we multiplied a number by itself to get what's in the square root. And there's no way for us to multiply a number by itself and get a negative. So if you need to think about that for a minute, there's no way for this to work in our real number system. So what that means is that you'll get two answers, but they will be two, imaginary solutions. So if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, which means it's negative, then you will get two imaginary solutions. And again, that's because this right here is not a real number. Okay? All right, so we'll still get two answers, but they're going to be imaginary. All right, so now the third thing that can happen is that we get a positive answer, and this is what's going to happen most of the time. So you're going to fill in b, a, and c, work this out, b squared minus 4ac, and you're going to get a positive answer. Well, there's two things that can happen here, okay? One of them is that your answer is a perfect square. And the other thing that could happen is your answer is not a perfect square. All right, so here's the difference. If we work this out and we get a perfect square, then I know that our answer is going to look like negative b plus or minus the square root of a perfect square is going to be a number over 2a. So we'll get two answers because we'll have negative b plus and negative b minus, but you will get two rational solutions. All right, so if b squared minus 4ac is a perfect square, then you'll get two rational solutions. Now, if it's not a perfect square, then what that means is that when you go to simplify this, no matter what, you're going to end up with a square root in your answer. Because if it's not a perfect square, we might be able to simplify it, but we won't be able to get rid of the square root. So if b squared minus 4ac is not a perfect square, then you're going to get two irrational solutions. All right, so this is the way it breaks down. So if it equals 0, you're going to have one rational solution. Basically, you're going to get the same number twice. If b squared minus 4ac is a negative number, you're going to get two imaginary solutions. And that's because we can't take the square root of a negative. Now, if b squared minus 4ac is positive and a perfect square, then you're going to get two rational solutions. But if it's not a perfect square, you're going to get two irrational solutions. All right, so let me give you an example. All right, so here we go. So let's say that we have 3x squared plus 2x equals negative 7. All right, so first thing is we have to get this equal to 0. So I need to bring the negative 7 back over to the left. So we'll have 3x squared plus 2x plus 7 equals 0. So now I can see that the value of a is 3, the value of b is 2, and the value of c is 7. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill in b squared minus 4ac. All right, so b squared is 4. Now I need to do negative 4 times 3 times 7. So negative 4 times 3 would be negative 12, times 7 would be negative 84. So when I go to work this out, I get an answer of negative 80. So that is the value of the discriminant. What it means, since I got a negative, is that I'm going to have two imaginary solutions. So we will have two imaginary solutions. All right, let's try another one. Let's say that we have, so for example 2, how about x squared plus 12x plus 36 equals 0. All right, so looking at this, I know that the a is 1, the b is 12, and the c is 36. All right, so b squared minus 4ac. So I'm not doing the square root, I'm just doing b squared minus 4ac. So b squared is 144. And now I need to multiply negative 4 times 1 times 36, which is negative 144. So the discriminant equals 0. So since the discriminant equals 0, I'm going to have one solution. It's actually going to be 2, but it's the same number twice. And the reason is because if I were to finish the quadratic formula on this one, I'm going to have negative b plus 0 over 2a and negative b minus 0 over 2a. So this means I have one rational solution. And it's basically the same number twice. All right, let's do one more. So for example 3, how about 2x squared minus, minus x minus 3 equals 0. All right, so I'm just making this up. All right, so we can tell that a is 2, b is negative 1, and c is negative 3. So I'm getting that since it's equal to 0, I know this is the a, that's the b, and that's the c. All right, so b squared minus 4ac. All right, so b squared is going to be 1. And now we need to multiply negative 4 times 2 times negative 3. So negative 4 times 2, so that's negative 8, times negative 3 is positive 24. So the value of the discriminant is 25. All right, so I got a positive number that's a perfect square because 25 is a perfect square. So that means I'm going to get two rational solutions. So to explain why, let me get this written down right here. Two rational solutions. So if I finish with the quadratic formula, I would have negative b plus or minus the square root of 25 over 2a, which would then simplify to be negative b plus or minus 5 over 2a. So then what's going to happen is we would have negative b plus 5 over 2a as one answer and negative b minus 5 over 2a. So I'm going to get two rational solutions because since 25 was perfect, I no longer have a square root in my answer. All right, so that takes care of the discriminant. As always, if you need to go back and replay, please do. But I want to just mention one more time that at no point did we actually take the square root. We're only working out b squared minus 4ac, and then that tells us what kind of answers we'll have.